Throughout history, the Catholic Church and Freemasonry have shared a long and troubled relationship. To the casual observer, the tensions between the two might seem exaggerated. After all, Freemasonry, at least in its modern form, is often perceived as a fraternal organization devoted to charity, mutual aid, and personal enlightenment. Yet for the Catholic Church, Freemasonry represented something far more sinister, a hidden, quasi-religious system that, in its rituals, symbolism, and worldview, posed an existential challenge to Catholic orthodoxy. This conflict of ideologies eventually gave rise to a series of scandals, none more controversial than those involving Catholics accused of joining Masonic lodges in secret, defying centuries of papal prohibitions and ecclesiastical decrees. The Catholic Mason scandal, in its various incarnations, was not a single event, but rather a recurring drama stretching across the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. Each time it surfaced, it revealed the complex interplay between faith and fraternity, secrecy and loyalty, authority and rebellion. To understand this scandal, one must delve into the deeper history of the Catholic Church's opposition to Freemasonry. The reasons Catholics were drawn to Masonic lodges despite official prohibitions, and the social and political consequences when these clandestine memberships were exposed. The origins of the Catholic Church's opposition to Freemasonry can be traced back to the 18th century. In 1738, Pope Clement XII issued the papal bull In Eminenti Apostolata Specula, which explicitly condemned Freemasonry and forbade Catholics from joining Masonic lodges. The reasons were multiple. First, Freemasonry operated in secrecy, which made the Church suspicious of its true intentions. Second, Masonic lodges promoted religious indifferentism, the belief that men of all faiths could gather under a shared moral code without strict allegiance to any one religion. For Catholic authorities, this undermined the unique and universal truth of the Catholic faith. Third, Freemasonry cultivated a symbolic and ritualistic system that many clerics viewed as a rival religion, complete with its own ceremonies, initiations, and moral philosophy. Over the following centuries, numerous popes reiterated and expanded upon this condemnation. From Benedict XIV to Leo XIII, papal documents accused Freemasonry of fostering rationalism, relativism, and even anti-clerical political agendas. In particular, Pope Leo XIII's 1884 encyclical Humanum Genus presented Freemasonry as part of a larger kingdom of Satan, seeking to undermine Christian civilization and establish a secular, godless order. These warnings were not merely theological abstractions. They were rooted in real historical conflicts. In countries like Italy, France, and Mexico, Freemasons often aligned with anti-clerical political movements that sought to limit or dismantle the Church's influence in education, politics, and social life. Thus, by the 19th century, the line was firmly drawn. To be a faithful Catholic meant rejecting Freemasonry. To join a Masonic lodge was to risk excommunication and eternal damnation. Yet, paradoxically, precisely because of this prohibition, the act of Catholics secretly joining Masonic lodges became all the more scandalous when revealed. Despite the Church's strict prohibitions, many Catholics were drawn to Freemasonry. Their motivations were varied and often pragmatic rather than ideological. For some, Freemasonry represented a pathway to professional advancement. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Masonic lodges often functioned as exclusive clubs where influential men gathered, exchanged ideas, and extended opportunities to one another. To be a Mason was to be part of a brotherhood that could open doors in politics, business, and intellectual circles. For Catholic men living in regions where Masonic influence was strong, declining to join could mean exclusion from networks of power. Others were attracted to Freemasonry's intellectual culture. Lodges often encouraged the discussion of philosophy, science, and progressive political ideas. For educated Catholics, particularly those influenced by Enlightenment thought, Masonry offered a forum where they could explore ideas that might be constrained within the rigid doctrinal boundaries of the Church. There was also a spiritual dimension. Some Catholics found the ritualistic and symbolic richness of Freemasonry appealing, even as it blended Christian, deist, and esoteric traditions. The use of allegory, ancient symbols, and moral teachings gave Freemasonry an aura of mystery and transcendence. For those disillusioned with clerical authority but still yearning for spiritual depth, the lodge seemed to provide a meaningful alternative. Yet to embrace Freemasonry as a Catholic was to live a double life. It required secrecy, deception, and a willingness to compartmentalize one's faith and one's fraternal commitments. Inevitably, when these secret affiliations came to light, they provoked scandal, shock, and sometimes severe punishment. The Catholic Masons' scandal emerged publicly in the 18th and 19th centuries when prominent Catholics were discovered to be Freemasons. These revelations often sparked outrage not only within the church, but also among the wider public, who saw them as evidence of hypocrisy or betrayal. One infamous case was the exposure of clergy who had secretly joined Masonic lodges despite their vows. Such cases were especially damaging, as they suggested that even ordained priests, who were supposed to be guardians of orthodoxy, were seduced by the allure of Masonry. For church authorities, these defections were more than personal failings. They were symbolic of a larger infiltration that threatened the unity and purity of Catholicism. In Catholic-majority countries, accusations of secret Masonic membership sometimes carried political undertones. During the Kulturkampf in Germany, or the struggles between the Vatican and Italian unification forces, the image of Catholic Masons became a rhetorical weapon. The Church portrayed them as traitors who undermined Catholic solidarity at a time when the faith was under siege. Conversely, anti-clerical groups used their existence as proof that even within Catholic ranks, there was dissatisfaction with papal authority and openness to modern liberal ideas. If the 19th century laid the groundwork, the 20th century saw the Catholic Masons scandal explode in new directions. One reason was the global expansion of Freemasonry, which now had a strong presence in Europe, the Americas, and parts of Asia and Africa. Another reason was the rise of mass media, which made scandals more visible and sensationalized. Perhaps the most shocking revelations came in the form of clerical involvement with Masonry. Stories of priests, bishops, and even cardinals accused of having secret Masonic ties circulated widely. In Italy, where the Vatican's influence was strongest, such accusations carried particular weight. The case of the Propaganda Due Lodge in the 1970s and 1980s, though primarily a political scandal, implicated figures with alleged Catholic backgrounds and sparked speculation about Masonic infiltration at the highest levels of Italian society. Though the Vatican officially distanced itself from P2, the scandal reinforced popular suspicions that the boundary between Catholicism and Freemasonry was more porous than official pronouncements admitted. In Latin America, too, the Catholic Mason scandal took on local forms. Some politicians who publicly presented themselves as devout Catholics were rumored or proven to be lodge members. These revelations often fueled debates about whether Catholic identity was compatible with political modernity. In Mexico, for example, where Freemasonry was historically linked with anti-clerical liberalism, accusations of Catholic politicians being Masons carried explosive political implications. For the Church, each revelation of Catholic Masons in its midst was a theological and pastoral crisis. The question was not merely disciplinary, how to punish disobedient members, but doctrinal. Could a Catholic truly belong to an organization that the Church had consistently denounced as irreconcilable with the faith? The official answer remained firm. As recently as 1983, when the new Code of Canon Law was promulgated, the Vatican issued a clarification stating that Catholics who joined Masonic associations were in a state of grave sin and could not receive Holy Communion. This declaration, issued under the authority of Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, later Pope Benedict XVI, reaffirmed centuries of papal teaching. Yet the very need for such reiteration suggested that the scandal of Catholic Masons was ongoing. That despite repeated warnings, Catholics continued to join lodges in secret. The persistence of this phenomenon also revealed a pastoral dilemma. How should the Church minister to Catholics who were already Masons? Some bishops took a hard-line stance, excommunicating or denying sacraments. Others attempted a more pastoral approach, seeking dialogue and reconciliation. Yet in every case, the existence of Catholic Masons highlighted the limits of ecclesiastical control in a modern, pluralistic world. Beyond theology, the Catholic Masons' scandal illuminated broader tensions between tradition and modernity. On one level, it reflected the struggles of Catholics who sought to participate fully in modern society, its professions, intellectual currents, and civic life, while remaining loyal to their faith. For many, Freemasonry symbolized openness, progress, and fraternity, while the Church symbolized continuity, hierarchy, and exclusivity. The scandal arose precisely because individuals attempted, often unsuccessfully, to straddle these two worlds. On another level, the scandal fueled the mythology of conspiracy that often surrounded Freemasonry. The idea of Catholics secretly joining lodges fed popular fears of hidden networks manipulating politics, religion, and society from behind the scenes. In Catholic cultures, the specter of the Catholic Mason became a figure of suspicion, someone who could not be trusted, who belonged simultaneously to the Church and to its enemies. The Catholic Masons scandal is not merely a historical curiosity, it remains a live issue. Even today, debates continue over whether Catholics can or should join Masonic lodges. Officially, the Vatican's stance remains unchanged. Membership in Freemasonry is incompatible with Catholicism. Yet in practice, many Catholics, especially in countries where Masonry is integrated into civic life, continue to join lodges quietly. Thus, the scandal endures as a symptom of a larger tension, the struggle of Catholicism to assert its authority in a world of pluralism, secrecy, and competing loyalties. For some, Catholic Masons are traitors, undermining the unity of the Church. For others, they are bridge builders, embodying the attempt to reconcile faith with modern fraternity. Whatever the judgment, their existence has left a lasting mark on the history of both the Church and Freemasonry, ensuring that the Catholic Masons scandal remains one of the most fascinating and troubling chapters in the ongoing drama of religion and modernity.